Hello everybody and welcome to this brand new tutorial series in Unreal where I'm going to be making a city building game. As you can see, I've started with a completely blank project here. It is a blueprint project, but obviously this all translates to C++. It's just easier to teach people in blueprints than it is C++. So I've just got these three folders. The only thing with any content in at the minute is levels. And we're going to start today with just setting up the game mode, which obviously doesn't take much, and mainly going to be focusing on the camera movement, as that's the first thing I want to implement. So I'm just going to create this new game mode called City Builder Game Mode Base, like so, and then I'm going to assign that to be the startup one. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to create a character. That's how I'm going to use the camera to move around the world. I'm going to use an actual character that's got some collision, but it's just inherited from a pawn. I'm going to call this City Builder Camera Controller, because that's all essentially it's going to do. And because I like to do this isn't something you have to do. All my inputs are going to come through a player controller class. It's completely up to you whether you want to do that or not. But it's just another layer of abstraction that I quite like with my programming. So I'm just going to create a CB player controller there. And then in the game mode base, I'm just going to make sure these are always the defaults. Oh, sorry, that's opened on my second monitor. So player controller class is going to be the City Builder player controller, and the default pawn class is going to be our City Builder camera controller. So compile, save that, and then just to quickly run and test, if I press play, I cannot move or rotate my camera or anything when I press play because I haven't put any logic in, which is exactly what we were after. So the first thing I'm going to do is set up my pawn. So I'm going to leave it invisible. We don't need to see the mesh or anything, because it's just going to stay to the ground and move around when I put in my input. But the first thing I need to add is a spring arm component, because this is what the camera is going to be attached to. I want the camera to always be focused on where this player controller is, so it'll zoom in and out, it can orbit around it and all kinds of stuff. So once I've added in my spring arm, I then need to attach a camera to it. So add a camera in. If it's not already a child of the spring arm, just drag and drop it on like that. Make sure that it's underneath it. Save that. That'll be the default camera. That's exactly what we want. And if I do that, it's all the way over here. Yes, so as you can see, it's kind of... Why is that offset so much? The location is set to -300. That might have been because I took it off its parent and then put it back. So I've just put it back to there. Yes, you can see that it's at the end of the spring arm. So the first quick thing I'm going to do, if I set this spring arm rotation to be 330, it's going to be looking down at the player, and you can see the camera is still focused down at the player. So now, when I run, you can see the camera is looking down at the ground where the invisible player controller is. So let's add some basic movement. So I think the first thing we want to do is probably add in some rotation and some actual movement. Let's bin all those off. So go into your project settings, go down to input, add in some new axis mappings. So the first one is going to be move forward/back, and then I'm just using simple WASD movement. So keyboard W is going to be 1, and then S. Scroll down to in the keyboard S, and then set this to -1. If you don't understand what this means, basically we're adding in these input mappings. So anytime anyone presses a W key, an event is triggered with a magnitude of scale 1. Every time someone presses S, the same event is called, but with a magnitude of -1. And we're going to do the same for strafing left and right. /right. So our A key in keyboard is going to be, we're going to actually make this -1 because we'll always be using the right vector to calculate this. And then we're going to add in the D key, and that's going to be +1. The last one that I want to add in is camera orbit. So if I call that camera orbit, like so, and I'm going to put this on Q and E. So when I press Q, I want to rotate around left, and when I press E, I want to rotate around right. So keyboard, so Q, I'm actually going to set to -1, and then E, the E key down here, I'm going to set to +1, like so. So now that we've added those in, that was all fairly simple. We come back to our event graph, and this is where mine will be slightly different to yours potentially if you are not using a player controller. If you're not using a player controller, then in your pawn, all you want to do is call those input mappings. So camera orbit, you see there's an axis event here, just use that directly here. But I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to create a new custom event, if I could spell. Again, call it camera orbit, and then I'm going to add a magnitude in here. Magnitude. I swear I am good at typing, but anytime I'm recording myself or someone is stood on my shoulder watching me, it just all goes to pot. So I've added a camera event here, and then what I do for my project is I go into the player controller that I made, come into the event graph here, and now I do the camera orbit axis event from here. I get the controlled pawn, so I know who I'm controlling, and when I return this, I'm just going to cast it to the pawn that we've made, just to ensure that I'm controlling the right kind of pawn. And then when it comes back out, I'm going to call the new custom function that I made. Oh, what did I call it? I did call it camera orbit. Oh wait, hold on a second. Have I not compiled and saved that? Oh, I called it camera orbit. That's probably why. Orbit. There it is. And then drag that across. Compile, save that. Now hopefully what this means is... Oh wait, we've not actually put any logic in. So that would be an issue. So what we're going to do with this camera orbit is we're going to add in some controller rotation. So all we need to do is, if we right click and we do add controller yaw input, like so, drag that across. And another thing that I like to do is on my pawn, I'm going to add an orbit speed variable, so that I can adjust on the fly how quickly the camera does orbit. So by default, I'm just going to set this to maybe, let's just set it to 1 and see what that looks like first, shall we? Compile and save that. So when the magnitude comes out, I'm just going to multiply that by the orbit speed. And another reason, a really good reason to do this is so that your players can adjust sensitivity settings and they can get it to how they want it fairly easily. So if we multiply those together and then we drag that, put that into the controller yaw input, and hopefully when I press play now, I press Q and E, and look, I'm rotating my camera around, like so. Right, so that was easy enough. Now I guess we should do the movement. So to do that, just add another custom event, which is going to be move forward. And again, that's going to take in a magnitude. And create another custom event, which is going to be again another input of left right strafe. Sorry, magnitude is the parameter, and then left right strafe strafe is the name of it. What we want to do here, I have a character movement component because I've used the character type to create this pawn. So we're going to do that. We're going to use the function add movement input on our movement. It's just a nice, easy way to do it. But this does require some small amount of setup. So what I need to do is I need to get the control rotation of our pawn, like so. I need to break out this rotator. And then using the broken rotator, I need to create a new rotation from that. So if I do make rotator, and you'll see why I need to do this in a moment, but basically just plug your yaw into that. And this means that when we put in our inputs, the movement input is always in the right direction based off of the camera direction. So if we get the return value of that and we get our forward vector, that's what we're going to be using for the forward and backward movement. Plug that into the world direction, and then with the magnitude, put that into the scale value, compile and save that. And then similarly with the left-right strafe, instead of getting the forward vector out, we're going to get the right vector. And then again, we're going to be adding movement input like so. Putting that there, that goes to there, and the magnitude gets plugged into the scale. Easy as that, really. Oh, it didn't connect those ones up like that. Compile and save that. Problem I have with blueprints is they get messy very quickly. There's too many overlapping things, but that's where we are. That's not too much of an issue. And then again, because my input might be slightly different from yours, I will get my move forward a back axis event. And again, I'm just going to be casting to the camera controller like that. As the controller, we are going to do the move forward function, plug in the magnitude like so. And once again, I'll just bring another one of these down. Input, left, right, strafe left, right. That's what we called it. Another cast. You get the gist of this. Grab that out. Strafe left, right. Plug that in. Compile. Save. Go back to here. Press play. I'm moving left. I'm moving right. I'm moving forward. I'm moving back. If I rotate, I'm doing it based off the rotation that I'm currently in. Perfect. What I might do is, because I'm assuming if I carry on going forward, my player controller is going to fall off the edge of the world, even though it's invisible. Yep, there we go. So I'm going to quickly just scale this up. 10 in the X and 10 in the Y. There we go, that makes things a bit easier. Okay, yeah, I mean, it's looking pretty good at the minute. The last thing I really want to add is probably zooming in and out. So what we need to do is go back to the project settings and in our input. Now this is quite unusual. I'm not sure why Unreal does this, but your mouse wheel doesn't work for axis mappings. You have to use axis mappings. You can only use the mouse scrolling on action mappings, which is a little bit strange. So I'm just gonna camera zoom in action, and then so I zoom in when I scroll up. So that's going to be mouse wheel up, and then add another one, which is camera zoom out, and this will be the mouse wheel down. So we just added those in. That's fairly simple. Go back to your pawn where you're doing all your logic from, and then this time what we need to do is we're going to create another custom event. Obviously, as I've already mentioned, use your inputs, camera if you need to. So the camera zoom, new parameter, magnitude. Compile, save that. And then what we want to do here is we want to get our spring arm, the one that we attached onto our pawn. And then we want to get out the target arm length. That's what we're going to be using to do this. So if you get the target arm length out, compile and save that. And then similarly, if you drag another node off of the spring arm, we want to set target arm length. That's going to be the final product of this function. Like that. The simple thing we want to do is just add these together and plug it in. But once again, I am going to set a zoom speed in with a default value of 20. Make sure you actually set these default values. I've been caught by that before. If you don't do that, you'll be adding 0 to this and it won't work. So grab the target arm length. In fact, sorry, no, first we're going to multiply the magnitude that comes in by the zoom speed. Compile and save that. And then we're going to simply do an addition. In fact, I'll drag that to the top one and that to the bottom one so it looks a bit nicer. Plug that in, compile, save that. I go back to here and add in my input action, camera zoom in, cast to that. So on the camera zoom in, I'm going to call the camera zoom, and I'm going to call this with a magnitude of 1 because I'm zooming in. Oh, that might actually be the wrong way around. That might need to be -1, but I'll do some testing first. And then another one, camera zoom out. And then another cast. Call the same function. And I'll show you the reason why I'm using the same function for this in a moment. I'm sure this will be the wrong way around, but we're going to test it anyway. Compile, save that, and then if we press play, yep, I am zooming the camera in and out. And yes, I was right, the mouse wheel is the wrong way around, so I need to come back to here, change that to -1, because zooming in, so when I scroll forward, I want this camera arm to be shorter, so we want to take off length from it, and then when I zoom out I want to add length to the camera arm so that it's longer. Compile and save that. And then the last thing I do want to do before I go, I'm going to pull this out a little bit and I am going to clamp our value just to make sure that the camera never goes ridiculously far out. So I can actually just, using this target arm length, I can see that the nearest I want it to get to the player is probably actually about 300. That is quite close to the player for these kind of games. So if I go back to the event graph, the minimum this can be is going to be 300. And what I might actually do is have my starting one at 600 or something like that. And then the maximum, if I go back to the viewport, let's see what 2000 looks like. How ridiculous is that? Might not be too ridiculous. Compile, save that, and then set the max to 2000. Oh, I think I put 20,000 there. There we go. Compile, save that, and then we plug that in instead of the addition. And then what that means is now when we play, I'm zooming in, I'm zooming in, I'm zooming in. I can't go any further than this. Zooming out, I'm zooming out. It's going to take a while, I'm zooming out. And now I can't scroll any further than this. So that is essentially it for this first episode, just getting the basic camera movement in. I'm quite happy. I want to up the speed of that now that the camera zoomed out. My strafe's a bit slow. But if I zoom in, it appeared to be going faster. So yeah, that's a good starting point for our project to continue on with the next episode. I'm hoping you're enjoying this and you found this useful. Drop any comments below if you have any questions or you need me to go over something in a bit more detail. I'll be active in the comments section, seeing how people are getting on. So I just want to thank you very much for watching, and I will hopefully see you in the next episode. Goodbye for now.